I'm going to do another off-brand video explaining something I've been explaining to some of my friends recently that most people aren't connecting the dots on about history and where we are in history. Um, I have been building computers for almost 30 years. I think I started building computers when I was I started modifying computers at 11 years old. I'm 43. I think I started building computers when I was 15 or 16, maybe even 14. Anyway, it's been about 30 years, which means I've been buying computer hardware and assembling it for about 30 years. Software I've been working with longer, but this isn't about software. Well, maybe it is. I can get into that. Software in the sense that video games are software. Normally, if I talk about video games, I'm talking about video games in the context of story writing or artwork. But in this video, it'll become clear why I'm talking about it in the context of software. So what we're seeing happening in the computer hardware space right now in the industry, I can say unequivocally, because I've been watching this space, this industry for 30 years, is unprecedented. Previous to the last 5 years, if you saw major rollouts in computer from the major computer hardware corporations, major hardware rollouts that were faulty, if you saw that take place, well, that was unheard of. It just never took place. There might have been smaller companies where it happened, or it might have happened in smaller batches from the bigger companies, and then those would be RMA'd, and basically they would remediate it. They would produce a better product and take back the faulty one and give it to you for free, right? Like a warranty kind of situation. But what's happening now is, I think it actually, let me think. I think it started with NVIDIA releasing the 4090, which is not engineered properly, and it melts. The power source, the place where the cables have to connect is too small for the amount of juice that's running through those cables, and it inevitably melts if you're using the 4090 properly. And there's actually no way to fix this. They tried to come out with ways of fixing it, and ultimately, if you use your 4090 long enough, it always melts. They did not re-engineer the 4090 and replace it, and people are just allowing this to happen, which shocks me, especially considering how much money NVIDIA had during this period. They are the most highly valuated corporation in all of human history, and they still got away with this absolute bullshit. After that, AMD had a little bit of a thing where they were pushing the energy flows through their AM5 platforms too high and melting their chips when they first came out. This was a software fix that got fixed pretty soon after, but it should have never been released in this state to begin with, which connects to what's going on with video games, and I'll get into that in just a second. After that, it became clear that the 13 series and 14 series of the i7s, possibly even i5s of the Intels, are faulty in that I've actually seen CPUs that would last 30 years in server settings, and I've seen consumer grade CPUs that last 20 years easy. You could still use a 20-year-old CPU in most cases, so long as all the fans are working in the machine. So these CPUs are oxidizing, which means they're rusting underneath the cap in like a year, and they run the 13900K maybe makes it a year. The 14900K isn't even making it a year. The 14 and 13700 and 600Ks, I believe, are impacted too. The 14900K is at the moment the absolute best CPU that's ever been made, and it was faultily engineered, and that's just crazy. The 14900K has a 100% failure rate, after 1 year. And this is supposed to be top end, top of the line, consumer grade CPU, jack of all trades CPU, the best all around CPU on Earth that isn't a server grade CPU. The best gaming CPU tied with the 7800X3D, which is only specifically for gaming. The 14900K is supposed to be a jack of all trades CPU. and it has a 100% failure rate after 1 year. It's absolutely unheard of. So that's what's going on with AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel, who are the big three top computer hardware corporations. Now let's talk about the gaming industry. The gaming industry has been releasing faulty beta level crap for going on 5 years now. The first release I remember that really brought this to everyone's attention was Cyberpunk 2077, and it's been nothing but this ever since with AAA gaming. Star Wars, what is it? Jedi Outcast, I think, was the one that was a buggy mess when it came out. They never fully fixed that one. Redfall, same shit with Redfall. Oh, there's been too many. I don't even remember anymore. There's been one game after another. It's just been a huge disappointment. And I'm not just talking about the stuff that people don't like in terms of the artistic choices or the ideological decisions being made. I'm talking about the software itself is a buggy, broken mess when they release it. And they know they can get by with this because you can patch it using online services that people are downloading and patching with, like Steam. And that's kind of fair enough. That doesn't bother me too much when it's software, because it can be fixed if it's software. Although in some cases, like we saw with Jedi Outcast, it never got fixed. The hardware, though, that's completely unacceptable. All of those pieces of hardware, in my opinion, need to be perfected, and then the corporations need to give people the perfected pieces of hardware for free and take back the imperfect, because that's the way it used to be done. And I can't believe people are standing for this. People are just like lighting their money on fire. It's bonkers. So what's going on with computer hardware and with gaming speaks to a larger thing, I think, that's going on in our civilization, the global civilization, really, altogether, because these are global industries we're talking about here. That if you're in China or in America or anywhere in the world, you could be a gamer running computer hardware that's faulty on games that are becoming more and more crap. I think it speaks to decadence and decline, and the fact that we really are, as a civilization, to a point where, people were talking about years ago how we lost the ability to go back to the moon. It's the same process, but it's been speeding up faster and faster. It used to be that our tech industry was the one thing that kept going full speed ahead, no matter what anything else was breaking down in society, and it was a good metric of how we were doing, because other things that break down, like the education system, for example, which is where I am right now in a classroom, that's a very subjective thing. You can argue whether or not that's breaking down, but computer hardware, 100% failure rate after 1 year for a CPU, that's unheard of. A flagship CPU, absolutely astounding that people aren't like, well, I think Intel is actually going to go out of business because of this, because their reputation's dropping like a rock so quickly. And yeah, that's objectively measurable. The computer hardware stuff is objectively measurable. So like the tech industry was like, that was the one thing in Western civilization that we were still throwing all the money at, and still our top priority for everything. And, AI feeds into that a lot too. And that's why NVIDIA is valued so much. And the fact that it is taking a dump so quickly now and in such an obviously objectively measurable way indicates that we are collapsing as a global civilization at the moment, and it's reaching a critical mass. And there's other events taking place right now that makes that really scary, because you're introducing an unstable element to a critical level.